And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Bassin Magazine podcast. Bassin Magazine, guys. Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. With me tonight, I have a guy who's a local guy to where I live. Derek Hudnall is a Bassmaster Elite Series Pro. And also, he's a Missile Baits Pro. Missile Baits is, boy, they make some great stuff. Anyways, without further ado, I'm going to talk to Derek now. How are you doing tonight, Derek?
Fantastic, Jay. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, it's an honor to have you, a local guy who really knows how to talk fishing. And you just got back from the Northland, which I am jealous because there are brown bass up there. Wow, what a fun time you must have had.
Yeah, the last three. I mean, it was kind of a funky schedule this year, Jay. We had one singular trip to St. Lawrence River in upstate New York, which that's the first time that I can ever remember us going to the state of New York and only having one event and turn around and coming home. We normally have two, if not three, up there every single year. So, and then we had like 3 weeks between the other two that were up north, which was Lake Oahe in South Dakota, and then La Crosse, Wisconsin, the Mississippi River. So it was a little funky. But St. Lawrence River, I've been asked the question thousands of times in my career. Favorite place in the world to fish, and I always say St. Lawrence River. Always, it's just that place is incredible, and it showed out historically this year. I mean, if
So
you guys, were not watching that live, man, you missed out.
100 pounds, 100 pounds
Two guys
smallmouth.
that passed it. Two guys passed it. Yes.
100 pounds, man.
Mhm.
Wow. How exciting is that? I mean, jeez.
Just incredible. I mean, that event on the St. Lawrence River was the perfect storm. We went out of Clayton this year, and if anybody is familiar with the St. Lawrence River, Clayton is the furthest west. So it's right where Lake Ontario is. So, Lake Ontario is really calm and you can get around probably about 20 days a year. Like
20
never.
days a year.
It is never calm. It has always got, I mean, the westerly prevailing winds there always keep, giant waves in that place. It's very hard to fish if you don't know it. During that tournament, we had 4 days of slick, calm Lake Ontario. That
Wow.
that historically never happens. Absolutely never. So all of those guys were able to get out into Lake Ontario very easily, run wherever they want, because this year Canadian borders were open too for the first time since 2019 before COVID. So we could fish Canadian waters as well. That was the perfect storm. I knew they were going to catch him out there. Now during practice, it was a little bumpy. I didn't go out into the lake. I'm not. If you don't know a lake that is, if you never fished it, that place is enormous. It's like trying to figure out, okay, there's smallmouth in the Gulf of Mexico, so let's go try to figure it out tomorrow. To me, look, I have been very fortunate to make all four cuts that I've ever fished the St. Lawrence River, and I do it right there in the river, and that's what I'm familiar with. I know it. I'm comfortable there. I've had good finishes there, and I said I'm not going to go try to learn that lake in 4 footers. I'm just not. So, but I knew it was going to be calm during the days of the tournament, and I knew those guys would catch them. So we knew that was coming. But that on top of that fishery is just, it has the absolute perfect ecosystem for smallmouth to thrive. It's got the gobies are everywhere. They have plenty of forage food. The current's there, so it does not completely ice over, like everything else does around there. So,
Hmm.
man, that place really showed out for our tournament there. I mean, your boy in South Louisiana had 25 and a half pounds on day one, and I was in seventh.
Seventh.
Seventh. Seventh place. Day one, 25 and a half pounds. Seventh.
Seventh.
Day two, I had a bad day and only had 20 and a half pounds, right? Only a
Yeah.
measly 20 and a half, and I fell 20 spots. Unbelievable. Day
That
three, at day three, I had like 24 and moved up a little bit, but not enough. They just, the weights were insane.
so Let me ask you, what were you using
Oh my gosh.
for 25 pounds in one day on a smallmouth fishery?
Yeah, so I'm gonna let the secret out on your show.
Sure.
People are gonna be jealous, especially anybody in the South. But that 25 something that I weighed in on day one was all on a half-ounce jackhammer, missile baits, missile baits. Excuse me, I'm sorry. A missile baits shockwave on the back of it,
Okay.
16-pound sunline shooter, and yeah, I had a 7.3 St. Croix Victory in my hand. I mean, I'm telling you, I was power fishing that place. So to kind of give you some history behind that, that is how I fish the St. Lawrence River, and I have since I started fishing that place. There are always big ones shallow in the St. Lawrence River for whatever reason. Always.
So were you let me ask you this, were you catching smallmouths or largemouths then?
No, all small. I've never caught a largemouth. No, I did catch a couple. I did catch a few largemouth during the tournament. I don't know that any of them made the team, and I actually weighed any of them in.
Okay.
But I would catch an occasional, just random one. But those big smallmouth, I mean, big ones, the 5+ pounders are nomads. They love to get up there by themselves and just roam these shoals, these shallow shoals that are off the river. So I love now I have done well there deep as well. And day three actually I did well deep there. I had to change all 3 days, but day one and a chatterbait is a way in a smallmouth fishery that you can cover a lot of water up shallow because I'm telling you, if smallmouth had a choice, they would be shallow all year long.
Yep, they sure
Who
would.
was there? They love to be shallow, and especially the big ones. You just got to find where the bigger fish are in the river or that river system. So I would practice with a chatterbait, and I have done that for 4 years now. And I would only catch during practice. I would only catch like 1 out of 5 or 6. Most of them would follow it, and so when they would follow it, I would see them. So I'd
So was
know.
that one fish following it or six?
Now the Giants, it was only one.
Okay,
Um,
because in Lake
so
St. Clair, I mean, I never forget the first time I saw. I'm
yeah.
bringing in, a Ford. It wasn't a huge one. I was just young,
Mhm.
like I was in the Air Force, so I was probably 22 years old, and I'm bringing a smallmouth bass, and there's six of them following it. There was,
That happens. Now that happens with the smaller ones, and I'm calling a 4 pounder or 3 pounder a smaller one, but I'm telling you, like the Giants, the big ones,
jeez.
4.5 pluses. Those are nomads. They typically are by themselves. So that's what I typically, when I'm shallow smallmouth fishery, I practice a lot with a chatterbait because most of them won't eat it, Jay. Most of them will follow it, but they're going to show me where they're at. I mark it during practice. I said, okay, come back during tournament. I know where the bigger ones are. I probably won't be able to catch them on a chatterbait, but I'll probably catch them on a spy bait or a hair jig. I just want to know where they're at. So the tournament day one rolls around. Almost didn't pick the chatterbait up. I was like, let me just spy bait because I had like a 2 mile stretch of that river that during practice I knew where the bigger fish were. I mean the big ones. There was obviously a 2 mile stretch. I could catch fish all up and down that river on it, but there was a specific 2 mile stretch where the bigger fish that I was seeing in practice. But day one, there wasn't anything different, Jay. I could not keep that chatterbait away from it. They were choking it. Absolutely, and the big
Wow.
ones were. I don't know why.
So
They just
all the stars aligned and everything came together for Derek on day one.
it did, and I totally expected to have to catch some of those fish on a spy bait or a hair jig. If they would follow it, I could pick up a hair jig or something and get them to eat. But they were every last one of them choked at chatterbait. I mean, it was just insane. I had a camera boat pull up on me about midday, and I caught like 2 5.5 pounders. I mean, it was just insane.
Wow.
Um, and it
Wow.
changed. Yeah, it changed. Day two, oh, I didn't. I only had 20 pounds, but I had two great big ones come unbuttoned on chatterbait. They weren't eating as good. I didn't have near as many followers. We were kind of getting away from it. Um,
I think you know why I'm giggling. When I only had 20.
yeah, So
I
and then
mean,
they, yeah,
even down in the Kissimmee chain, you'd probably be proud to say I had 20 pounds.
yeah, good for you. Pat on the back.
Yeah,
20
man.
pounds. 20 pounds on day one at the St. Lawrence River got you like 80th.
Oh
It
man.
was stupid. It was just insane. And the last day, that the shallow bite disappeared in that area. Nothing but little ones. I actually had to run around. I found a deep spot where I live scoped up 24 pounds, something measly 24 pounds. And I'm catching most of them on a Ned rig and a big spy bait over the top of them, but I could see every one of them come and get it. So I had to change and adapt, and that's any smallmouth fishery anywhere around the country. You have to change and adapt with them because they will move within minutes and change, and you have to try to refigure them out. So had a good finish there. I'm stoked. Of course, as many and as big ones as I was catching, especially on day one, I really wanted a top 10 in that one. I really felt like I was around the fish to do it. Had one bad 20-pound day. 20 anyway. Good tournament, love it. Always have fun up there. So then we had two, South Dakota, Lake Oahe. Everybody's
Lake
like,
Oahe. I want to hear about this.
everybody like Lake what? Exactly. We went there. Anybody who follows us on the Bassmaster Elite Series, we went there the year before I qualified, so that would be like 2018. They went there. There's just not much history on that place. There's not a lot to read about it. I mean, it's a big walleye.
I fished it for walleyes before, but never smallmouth.
I mean, it's massive body. 250 miles long. It's like 3 to 5 miles wide at some points. The best way to describe it to anybody who asks me what's a Lake Oahe like, it'd be like, okay, can you picture fishing on the moon? Because that's kind of what it felt like. Nothing.
It's funny story. Wasn't that you who got in the cow controversy?
Oh yeah. That's a whole different story.
Yeah, come on, people, don't be cow lovers.
Yeah. No, it was fine. I found a cow that was so sunk in the mud, and we ended up finding the owner through their Department of Fisheries, and anyway, he got saved. But
people, oh my God, a cow guy.
Yeah, I know. So just like fishing on the moon. I mean, there's just guys. The wind blows up there like.
Oh man, how about the waves?
Never stops. There's nothing to stop it. It blows all the time. I mean, there's 5-footers on that place every single day. That place was like 20-foot low this year. The fishing stunk. It stunk. I mean, the top 10 are always going to catch them. And if you weren't out there trying to look at them at your live scope, just wandering around, I mean, you just weren't catching them. I mean, that fishery is every reservoir and lake and body of water goes up and down. And that place, I don't know if they have some kind of fish sickness there, but the fish were really poor, really skinny. I don't know if it was because that place was just so low, or maybe they got a little bass disease or something in there and sickness. But a lot of guys went up and pre-fished last year, the same week after the schedule was released. And everybody said the same thing. It was insanely good. The fish were big. They were grouped up, massive schools of them, easy to catch. And so a lot of people were predicting that this place could break records like the St. Lawrence River did. So we were all pumped. The media was pumped. And we get here, and it was the complete opposite. Just like I said, something's got these fish this year there. I do want to go back, when it kind of recovers from there, but the fish were just super, super poor. They were not grouped up at all. They were hard to catch. They were hard to predict.
Man, I haven't been there for 20 years, but I remember big fat walleyes. Fat walleyes.
Yeah, and I caught 4 or 5 of them a day. But like the catfish, like I caught my body weight in catfish every day. Like
really, you didn't catch big northerns instead?
What's that?
Did you catch any big northerns?
Oh, several.
Because I also remember like 40 to 43-inch northerns that were just.
I caught a couple of those. They are thriving in that place. The catfish are thriving, but for whatever reason, the smallmouth are struggling right now. Or when we were there, I hope that gets. There's something ecological there that's going on. I don't know what it is. The carp, there's millions. When I'm telling you millions of carp that are on the surface of the water there, you can almost walk across them. There's something going on with that place, and that could be, some guys were talking, that since it's so low, the oxygen level could be low right now. So that's why all the carp are at the surface, and that's why the bass are kind of struggling. But
Carp Gulf bears. So yes.
Yeah, and smallmouth require a lot more oxygen than a lot of the catfish and northerns and carp and everything does. So there's something going on there at that place. So that wasn't fishing wise. It wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be.
Well, darn it, man. That's a
Yeah, it's okay. Finished in the 60s there. There was nothing special to write home about. And then we finished up. We went straight from there to La Crosse, Wisconsin.
that's what I want to hear about because I have fished there
Yeah,
a lot of times.
yeah. Now I've never fished there before. That's one I've been my whole life. I'm like, I never want to go up there because it reminds me a lot of South Louisiana. It's more of a delta like. I mean, it's basically the opposite side of the Mississippi River than where I live.
Yes, the opposite side, and it's beautiful.
Straight up, oh my goodness. And I'd never been there before. I felt very comfortable there from the
Did you
moment
do
I
any locking through?
was that.
Did you do any locking through?
No, I did not.
You just stayed in the same
I'd never been there before. Pool 8 has plenty of water in it. I said, I'm going to learn it. I'm
Plenty
not
of
gonna,
bass too.
lots. So I was comfortable. And that one, that tournament for me, I made a D3 cut, had a decent finish there, but I was not happy with the way things turned out because I had a very good practice for that tournament. There hasn't been but a couple of tournaments in my career that I ever went into an event as kind of confident and comfortable as I was for that one. I was very confident.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Did you do any frogging?
Everything. I did everything.
Did everything. Okay.
Frogging is more, yeah. I mean, everybody did some frogging, but it was just more. I had several different options there. I had a couple of areas there were some really big ones at.
Yes.
And I knew it would. You never want to count chickens before the eggs hatch. You never want to get like that. But I was very confident going into that thing. I had one spot that I'd found that some big ones were just loaded in, and it's one of those spots that you don't find very often. I was very excited about it, but I was last flight the first day, so I'm thinking to myself the whole time, I'm not going to be the first boat there. Somebody else is going to find them. But I'm from South Louisiana, and I try to run back in stuff that I probably have no business running back in, but I do it anyway.
Mhm.
And it was one of those spots, and the river was low, so there wasn't anybody back there. So, long story short, didn't pan out. I ran all the way in there day one. I'm in his last boat number or last flight. Nobody back there. Never could get the big ones to eat. I probably caught 100 fish on day one. The
Wow.
big ones did not eat. I don't, big ones don't eat every day. Big ones like to eat together. I don't know if it's a stars alignment or whatever. People say lunar calendars. That could be a case, but it never panned out. I probably caught 100 fish for 13 and a half pounds. I was in a 20 somewhere, and everybody's like, man, good job. And I'm like, you don't understand I was not happy with that on day one because I really thought I could catch a big bag in there. If not, it was a special place.
So
it just never panned
largemouth
out.
or smallmouth?
Both. I had both.
Both.
I would catch a largemouth. I would catch a smallmouth. I would catch a largemouth. I would catch a smallmouth. There was just
When I would
very
fish,
unique, yeah, very unique area. Actually, Brian Schmidt, who's one of my best friends, I roomed with him. He won it, and I was looking at him the whole time.
wow.
Yeah,
Let me ask you a question. When I would fish the
yeah.
BFLs,
Hmm.
almost the entire field, particularly in the August tournament, would run up and fish above a dam, and there would be duckweed, just duckweed as far as the eye could see, and you could see hundreds of lines where guys had pulled their frogs through.
Right, right.
Did you see anything like that?
Oh gosh, that's everywhere, everywhere.
Everywhere, okay.
Very common.
Because I mean, you being a wacky rigger, this is where I shone because shined. I don't know,
You're
whatever.
good.
I'm trying to use correct English, but anyways,
Oh, you're good.
I would wacky rig there because
Yeah.
duckweed, 3 feet of almost clear water, and then there's nothing but weeds underneath it. Oh man, what a beautiful place to fish!
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So
You could also run a square bill in there. Now I'm thinking that now that my mind is opened and I'm thinking. Back
mhm.
then, I was thinking a wacky rigging is the only way to catch fish. No, it's a tool.
That's right. That's right. So that was it. Wisconsin was man, it was good. That place has got a lot of fish in it. Reminds me of Venice back here home. Um, that was again, but that was a bit disappointing tournament for me because I really had high expectations coming into that event for me. And I don't
So,
say that very much, and rarely do I ever, but I was pretty confident there.
so
And we had
when you get
changed.
to go back there, do you think you're going to do better?
Uh, Jay, I have no idea, buddy. I don't know.
Okay,
I,
that's a fair answer, man. Because
I don't know. We'll
city river
see.
from hour to hour sometimes.
Yeah, we're not going back there next year, so I know that. But we had changing weather conditions. We had a bunch of rain dumped on us up there. Water was rising.
Yeah, yuck.
A lot changed, but
Was it muddying up then too?
that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
it was
no,
a
no,
lot of
no,
areas.
no, no, no.
My areas weren't, but they just they just changed. It's all there is to it. I was never away from the abundance of fish, but the big ones just never. I did have a great big one hooked up the last on day 3 that I almost had my hands on her, but that was the first big bite I'd gotten in there during the tournament, and she was there. And I saw her on live scope and threw a little Ned rig out there and caught her, or almost caught her. But they just never. I really thought you know the quality of the fish were there, and I don't know if they were leaving me and going to Brian Schmidt because I'm one of his best spots were literally I watched him 300 yards away from me. Very possibly they could have been leaving me and going to him. Um, but who knows? I don't know. If we go back there again, I'll do the same thing I did this time, and you just get the number one thing in tournament fishing is you have to have confidence that you're around the fish to compete to win. If you have that confidence, that's the first step and the biggest key. So I felt like that there, but it just didn't pan out, and it's not going to always pan out. That's for sure. Not in tournament fishing.
Nope. Particularly not at the level you're at, because
Right.
you're
Right.
literally competing against some of the very best boys in the business.
Yes, they're all good. Everybody's good.
And like you told me before, when I asked you what's your favorite presentation to use, and you said I have to be able to use them all.
Every one of them.
But now here's a good question I'd like to ask you. As a missile baits pro,
Hmm.
confidence lure, smallmouth bass up north, missile baits.
For smallmouth up north, anything with a shock wave on the back of it.
Shockwave, okay.
I've caught a lot of fish, especially that like on that jackhammer. I had a shock wave on the back of it. I'm a big jackhammer guy. I'm not affiliated with him, but I've been a big chatterbait guy. I had a top 10 in Lake Fork this year on that chatterbait with that shock wave on the back of it. That's
That's
just
interesting.
that's a fish catching machine.
That's interesting because, as you know, I've had several elite pros on my show
Hmm.
and on the Bassin Magazine podcast, and lots of them like to use chatterbait type lures.
That's a big fish catching bait everywhere around, all around the country, all species. Always has been, and always will be. Mhm. No affiliation with them. I don't. They don't send me anything. I buy it just as everybody watching and yourself does. Get them from
Sure.
Tackle Warehouse. That's my own money. I don't. But they catch big. It catches big ones, and I've caught some, including my personal best this year was on that setup.
And where was that, Derek?
I'm sorry.
Where did you catch your personal best bass at?
That was in Florida this year, right before we started the St. Johns River tournament. I caught an 11 3/4, like an
Wow.
11.9
Wow.
on that half-ounce green pumpkin chatterbait, missile bait shockwave on the back of it, 16-pound sunline, shooter that I just told you, and that 7-3 victory by St. Croix.
Sure.
I caught 11 3/4 on it. I've just big ones. I caught the biggest bass in Bassmaster history ever weighed in the state of New York 4 years ago on it. Same setup, same exact setup in Lake Cayuga, New York. Caught an 8-1 on that. It is a big fish catching bait.
Now, smallmouth or largemouth 8-1.
That was a largemouth.
Okay.
Yes, they just don't get that big up there. You know that they just don't get that big. That was very.
I don't.
She was a dinosaur.
Because
So,
my personal best was from Illinois, and it was only just a hair over 7 pounds, and that's a largemouth.
and that's a
And
giant. Yeah.
in Illinois, you're right. It's just they just don't get that big. And
They just don't. The northern strings. This is very. A fish that A1 that I caught in Cayuga there's no telling how old that fish was. That fish had to have been probably 20 years old.
That was an amazing catch. That was an absolutely amazing catch.
That was a special moment. So still holds the record as the biggest one ever weighed in Bassmaster history anyway.
I'm surprised that old girl had enough energy to chase down a jackhammer.
Hey, she slacklined it. To be honest with you, she didn't fight very hard, but when I got a good look at her and came up, she was good. So I mean,
Look at her, and your knees went weak, didn't they?
yeah, they did. And I'm going to tell you even a really good story behind that. So that was my first year on the Elite Series. That was 2019. And the guy that got in the boat with me that day, he was my marshal. He came to me and he said, I met him that morning. He said, Derek, he said, I've been following your journey for 4 years now. I've been a follower of yours, been rooting you on. I love following your journey through the Opens to qualify for the Elite Series. And he just said, man, it was an honor. I said, man, the honor's mine. Man, that's awesome to hear that. I get, paired with somebody that's been following me and rooting me on for years. Didn't know him from Adam. He said, man, it's going to be a good day. So he was with me in Cayuga when I caught that 8-1.
Wow.
Wow. So fast forward, St. Lawrence River this year, day one, when I had that 25.5-pound limit of smallmouth, he was with me. I drew him.
Wow.
When I saw his name as a marshal, I said, you got to be kidding me, because we've become closer throughout the years. So,
sure.
And I was like, you got to. He said, man, good things are going to happen. Well, I had 25 and some change smallmouth that day. So it was a pretty darn good day that day too. But yeah, it's just funny how things like that work out.
So we have a question from the audience.
Yep.
It's Cajun Rob. Cajun Rob is from Southern Kentucky, likes to fish a lot in Tennessee, fishes BFLs and stuff. He says, how do you retrieve your chatterbait for catching smallies?
Just reel it. That's it. Okay. But again, I'm going to warn you for that. I do, when I'm practicing for tournaments, I throw it a lot when I'm up shallow, because I'm not, there's a lot of times that they will follow it. Big ones love to follow it, and I can see them. And a lot of times when those fish follow a heavy follow-up bait, whether it be a hair jig or spy bait, even a wacky worm, because when they're behind it, typically they're just following it. When you see them behind it, go ahead and reel it in and throw something else over there at them. But I like to throw it, and I like to keep a fast retrieve. Just burn it. Just cover water with it. If they're up there, they might not eat it, but they're gonna follow it, and they're gonna show you where they're at, and then you can catch them however it is that you like to catch them once you can see them. But when they're up shallow like that, middle of the day, sun's up high, best time, they're kind of dumb. and if you don't catch them, if they follow that thing, have something ready right there to throw behind them so you can catch them.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know I like talking wacky rigging with you. We talked about that before the show, but what launched my guide career was one fish, and it was a smallmouth bass that turned out to be a lake record smallmouth bass caught on a wacky rig. And this was 1998.
Yep.
One fish.
Understood.
The bait shop owner took a picture of me, and he, had it printed out life size, just J Angel's fishing guide service, and with my phone number on it. And that, man, my phone started ringing, after that, because I was having a hard time. I might get one trip every 2 weeks, but then I started getting, my weekends were full.
That's right.
But that was a wacky rig, and I don't think of, I still to this day don't think of wacky rigs as a smallmouth bass. Well, what would you do with a wacky rig?
It'll catch them.
You're going to cut it and you're going to put it out, use it as a Ned rig,
It'll catch them everywhere. There's no doubt about that.
It does, but most of the places I fish, there's a lot of current.
Yep.
I love, my as a boy in Northern Illinois, my friends and I would grab our fishing rods, the Zebco 33, and run down to the stream in the middle of the town and wade the stream all day long and catch smallmouth bass. That's how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Great place to grow up.
Absolutely, my friend.
It's just so much fun, and then, and there's nothing in those Illinois streams that's going to eat you or bite you.
Yeah, it's unlike where we live. So
yeah. But okay, so we talked about your favorite missile baits.
Hmm.
Okay, let's talk about Lake Fork and this. How did you do at Lake Fork?
I had a good finish. I had a top 10 there. Had
Wow.
a really good finish. And Lake Fork is another one of those, like the St. Lawrence River, that's treated me well. I've never missed a cut there. Place makes sense to me. It's my strength.
That's wow. And you're using your jackhammer, man. Wow.
Some, I mean, this year was a little. I had three magical spots that were reloading every day. It was just post spawn, um, and I had all three of them to myself. And one they were there in the morning, one where they were there middle of the day, one where they were late, and they were coming to me, and nobody else found them. So it was just that never happens, but it did for me in that tournament, and I was catching a ton of fish every day. And that place is not easy to fish, guys. If those of you have not fished Lake Fork, I mean, it's world renowned. Everybody knows it. Everybody wants to go fish it, but that is not an easy place to fish. It's not like go put your water on that your boat in the water for 2 days and you're just going to go catch fish everywhere. That's just not the case. That is a very pattern lake. Well, I'm going to back this up. I don't want to say pattern lake because you can run a pattern there, but it's very area specific. Different. That place has like, bear with me here, but like 6 different areas to it. Each area is very different. You have to find where they're at. If you find them, you can catch them. Finding them is the hard part. Once you find them, you can catch them. They're pretty easy to catch, but these fish move. I mean, they follow bait. I mean, there's always fish shallow in that place. There's always fish in between, and there's always fish deep. It's trying to find a good mixture, but that's world renowned. It's probably the best well managed conservation fishery on the planet because it gets so much pressure, so much,
Okay.
but it still reloads every single year. But again, that's not an easy place to fish. If you're ever going up there for the first time, always going to advise you to get a guide. Get a guide for at least a half a day, if not a full day, to kind of give you an idea of what the fish are doing, and then go try to do it on your own. And that's not an easy place to figure out.
Okay. But obviously you figure it out.
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate, and every year we went there that I've done okay there. We're not going there this year. First time in 5 years we have not been to Lake Fork. We're not going there in the 2023 season. That's going to be a change, and that place has treated me well. I love it. It's a little intimidating because of the size of fish that live there, but we're not going there this year.
I looked at the schedule a couple of times. I just didn't look at you're going to the Sabine River next year.
That's correct, in Orange, Texas. Yep.
Is that going to be the only Texas stop?
Yes, it will be. Yeah, that's going to be the only Texas stop. So we're going to be completely confined to Texas waters again, just like we were last time. So, yeah, that's in June. I mean, that's the same time we were there the last time. That's a tough time of the year to fish, and that is a tough fishery. There's no doubt. So you're not going to see giant weights. Those are the type of tournaments that I like, though. I mean, it's
Really?
one fish is going to make a giant difference in everything.
So I talked to Brock Mosley about that the last time you guys were there, and he said that he made 100-mile run each way.
Yeah, there were several guys that did. They were running all the way to basically Houston to catch those fish. My goodness, yeah, that was just an incredibly
So
long.
he had to go over one of the bays in the.
Yeah, the Galveston Bay.
Yeah.
Run directly across. We had big winds. I mean, they got to get gas. There's a lot that went to it. And there was a couple of guys that made that run.
That sounds almost as crazy as the guys who launch in Port Clinton, Ohio, fish in Lake Erie, and go up to the St. Clair River.
Yeah, insane run. They were
100
just
miles.
trying to, it's not really that the fish were that much bigger up over there. It's just those fish were just not pressured. I mean, the Sabine River, if you don't make that long run, it fishes extremely small. Those fish were like in 3 little small areas, and that's where everybody was piled up. They just don't live anywhere else but there. Or you can run 115 miles to Houston. It's just not a great fishery. A great fishery, yes, when you factor in saltwater as well, but It's very hard in South Louisiana and South Texas for those fish to really regroup and really get a foothold in the ecosystem with the hurricanes that we have. We've had some catastrophic hurricanes in the last 5 years, and every time it comes down, it just completely changes the face of those places. I mean, giant fish kills, and they're just never able to get settled.
You know, you and I both fished this place, but Lake Bijou,
Yeah.
I think it's the same way. I've talked to so many fishermen
Um,
who says that every 5 years a big hurricane comes through here, or we get a drought year and the black water comes in and kills just about
yeah,
everything.
you're talking about Henderson. Henderson's far enough north to where the hurricanes. I mean, there's no saltwater intrusion that would
No,
come up there. I mean, depending on the winds, I don't know that. Yeah. I mean, Hurricane Andrew did a number on it in '92. Hurricane Katrina, the winds that we had from 2003 did, but no big reported fish kills from there. Henderson's a completely different ecosystem history. They used to have operational locks at the bottom of that place that would hold that place at a consistent level. Well, they did that for a while and they drained it for some time, and then they would spray, and now the locks are just wide open all the time. So when the Atchafalaya River get bottoms out and it gets super low, the water tends to get stagnant in that place. So um,
then what the
that's
locals call the black water. Yeah,
yeah, it tends to get stagnant when the river gets. I mean, so they don't hold that water in that place anymore. Little different situation. You have to get further south to where really the hurricanes affect the Atchafalaya Basin. You have to get more closer to Morgan City,
like Lake Verret.
the Wairons, yeah, there in south. So a lot of that will really suffer from saltwater intrusion from hurricanes. But we have such a vast fishery, and, all areas are different. Um, but anyway, yeah, man, just off season, got some time to rest, and we'll be hitting it back before we know it.
Well, well, I would like to ask you one thing.
Yep.
If you get an extra half a day, give me a call. I'd love to fish with you down here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, we've been on the road so much the second half. So I would love to have just a fun day of fishing, just to hang out. So we'll
And you know
definitely.
what? I'm not in the kind of health to be able to try to compete with you. So
There's no compete. Hey, when we're fishing for fun, there's no competing. Don't worry about
I,
that.
I just no, I'm just telling you, I'm not going to try to compete with you.
Oh, you'll probably teach me something.
I fish for myself anymore, and
Yep.
I've fallen back in love with fishing, and
Good.
life is good, man. Life is good.
Absolutely. Well, you make sure you
Oh,
keep.
here's another one. Cajun Rob has another question. Thoughts on fishing Fort Loudon Tellico in Knoxville for
Oof.
next year's Elite Series?
Mm. Oh yeah, that's where the classic is going back. I fished my first Bassmaster Classic there in 2019. You were that place again, guys. Not a great fishery. It just doesn't have a big population in it. Don't look for any giant weights. That event, that classic is going to be 1,000% weather related. Um, that time of the year, as everybody knows in that part of the country, could be extreme one way or the other. I mean, when I fished the classic there in 19, during practice, we had lows that were in like the low teens. I'm saying like 10, 11, 12 degrees,
Wow.
extremely high water, a bunch of rain, changing conditions. Do not expect stability, that's for sure. Um, and you never know how they're going to catch it. Just, I mean, that fisheries just changes, and just like Gussie winning it, a couple of years ago out there on smallmouth fishing, like you did at St. Lawrence River to Hot Defoe on flats. When I fished the classic there, um, it's it all depends on the weather. It all depends on the weather. So we're just gonna have to wait and see as it gets closer.
Well, I can tell you one thing: Cajun Rob certainly is going to be there watching you.
Yes, indeed.
Um, well, anyways,
Uh-huh.
I think how I end every single podcast. If you'd like to make any shout outs, you certainly are welcome to do it right now.
Oh, absolutely, man. Everybody that supports me, especially the people that are watching this video and they watch Jay and they follow you, man, and we appreciate you as
Thank
fans
you.
following us, because that's what really makes us who we are, and then that's what drives us. And getting up on stage and seeing the fan bases that show up, especially this year. We're starting to get away from COVID. So we've had some giant crowds, to the comments that we get on social media and the good lucks and, cheering for you. But everybody who watches things like this is the reason why we love what we do. And I know yourself included. So the big shout out, everybody that's watching.
Well, thank you. Thank you. As always, just, I'd like to do a shout out just because I have Derek on my show.
Yep.
I'd like to do a shout out to Missile Baits. I love their stuff. It's innovative.
Yep.
Missile Baits, y'all do a good job.
Absolutely.
That's not taking anything away from any of the other really great soft plastics companies out there. It's just I like a lot of them. And that's why I'm not sponsored by any soft plastics because I can't be faithful.
Understand.
There's so many good ones.
Absolutely.
But anyway, speaking of good ones, I'd like to thank you, Derek, for coming on the show so much. You break things down.
Anytime, Jay.
You've helped my wacky rigging so much.
Yeah. Glad to help.
If you think people aren't listening to you, well, I listen to you.
Well, I appreciate that, Jay. Well, thanks for having me anytime.
I'm one of those guys who cheer you on through social media.
I do appreciate that.
And I'd like to thank everybody for watching the Bassin Magazine podcast. Guys, Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. Weekend Angler, that's me. Not all of us are blessed to be able to do.
We're all blessed in our own little ways.
Yeah, not all of us, but yeah, you're exactly right with that, Derek. You're exactly right with that, because I certainly am blessed in so many other ways. But but anyways, thank you guys. With that, Derek, stick around. With that, guys, I'm going to end the podcast. You know what? Get out there and fish this weekend, because you only get to do this once.